Thank you for joining us for 10 Minutes with the Artist, an episodic series that explores the art practice and the personal vision that guides artists. On today's episode, we're very proud to have Andrew Stark, who exhibited his recent artworks at the 2016 Visual Arts Faculty Exhibition at the Memorial Union Gallery at North Dakota State University. Andrew's works are complex and often deeply layered arrangements that invite the viewer to sort out their place within the painting. The works can come across as complex and even chaotic at first glance, but in time, there's something profound in the calm of accepting the experience and order that lies beneath. I'm Anthony Ferris, and this is 10 Minutes with the Artist. So thank you so very much, Andrew, for joining us for 10 Minutes with the Artist. In the piece, Telescopics, it makes me think of this separation that happens when you're looking through a telescope and you're sort of like at two places at once. And it seems sort of like, with that sort of idea, sort of disjointed. And then when I look at the piece, it's sort of like hypnotic in a way, in sort of its vastness. And I was curious how your viewers were looking at this. Have you heard that viewers are sort of getting lost in the piece, or?
Well, I hope that's the case. With that particular piece, when I painted it, I was, specifically interested in reinterpreting the modernist sublime and interested in micro versus macro space and phenomenon and systems. So I wanted to capture some sense of that. Almost that vibrance or feeling of almost disassociation that occurs when you're in the presence of the sublime, and it's almost a feeling of awe, wonder, that humans have experienced for thousands and thousands of years. So I was at the time of that painting, I was really interested in kind of those kinds of ideas. So with kind of the reference to optical art and that sense of looking through a lens and kind of peering into another world, I was hoping that the viewer would experience some sense of, at least visual vibration. Whether or not they're actually experiencing a sense of the sublime, I don't know. But, those were parts of at least some of the modernist painters who when I first started painting, I really was kind of fascinated by that idea that a piece of artwork could elicit that kind of a reaction, which I think is a very powerful thing. And of course, I can't take the immensity of nature and put that into the. I can only simulate that or try to. But with that specific piece, I'm hoping to create some bit of discontinuity or imbalance, in their perception or reaction. So sometimes it can be difficult to look at. But I think if you allow yourself to kind of let the painting overtake you, you can go to specific places where that's possible. So, yeah.
Well, the spheres in that painting, they don't really have like a sense of character to them. All they really have is like definition of size and placement.
Yeah.
And I was curious if it was important that I can't really know these spheres except as a part to a whole.
Yeah, I mean, certainly they're abstractions. They don't have depth, and that in itself, at least for me as I was painting it, was a reference to flatness and an acceptance of the flatness of the space. I wasn't specifically trying to create an illusion or a window. It's a recognition that yes, this is a flat plane, but if I can still play with that idea, if I can still play with the viewer's perception and recognizing that this is a visual experience and give them some recognition themselves that they are relying upon this system in their eye to to experience this, then for me it becomes less important that that this needs to be a definitive depth or spatial sphere, for instance. So keeping it more generalized, I think of course using a lot of size variation, hard-edged versus the background, which is very blurry, does create this sense of vibration. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no. I just I was curious about that, and I was curious about so the difference between telescopics and integration seems at appearance to be pretty different. Like between like sort of like, I mean, the contrast between like heavy and light, and conceptual and formal, and I was just curious if there was a link between the two besides the fact that the same person painted it.
Yeah, I mean, they are two very different stylistic choices and application choices, and I find that with every new body of work that I go into, I'm always trying to go to a new place, pushing myself, try new techniques. I'm bound by a different set of circumstances. It could be mood or situation or what I'm reading at the time, certainly what I'm looking at, and so I tend not to. I get restless. I don't want to stay in one specific mode of painting. So I have to try a lot of different techniques and going from encaustic to really splashy paint to really going into realism to very fine detail. But what brings it back for me is the material. I love working with the actual material of the paint. That's what initially excited me about painting, and still does. So, conceptually, I'm still concerned, and I think I have been for a long time, with this idea that there is, and I don't know if it's cliche or not, but this interconnectedness of humanity to macro systems to microsystems. I find that just fascinating. It's overwhelming. Looking at Hubble imagery and seeing these photons that we're seeing now that are billions of years old. At this point in history, I think is really consciousness changing, and then going in the going down to the subatomic level. I find that just those systems still it's sometimes you get chills kind of trying to wrap your head around it. So I think I'm trying to at least recognize that or emulate that in the paintings to a degree. And with that specific piece, it's more about less about looking out, where telescopic is more the viewer or me experiencing it, and it's more almost an outside view, looking in and kind of experiencing these these interconnected feelings. So it's a bit more internal. Maybe the thicker paint itself is referencing, it's a bit earthier. It's more material.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think conceptually they're very tied in my mind. I don't know if they are in the viewer's mind, but each group of paintings, as I move forward, I'm continually pushing myself in a different direction. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
at the very end of our talk, we like to ask a couple of questions about your sort of creative practice. So, what time of day do you feel like you're most creative?
Most creative, probably. Well, it used to be at night, and having two small children, now I don't have that luxury. I'm staying up all night, so it's probably afternoon or evening, weekends certainly I find are more productive. Studio time becomes something of a luxury.
Mm-hmm.
So really I've found that my working method it's really had to change fundamentally, where there was kind of before kids and after kids, being able to jump into the studio or spend long hours, say 8 to 10 hour stretches, sometimes 12 hours in the studio, and you're just so focused on that process. And so much of that time is just spent thinking about the work and looking and considering all the directions it could go in. Now it's being able to grab onto studio time when I can,
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to instantly get into that mode of, okay, now this is production time. So
It's a good instigator.
yeah. Yes.
Is there do you listen to music or anything like that when you're making art?
Yes, all the time. Yeah.
What are you listening to? What do you listen to?
Right now, I've got some George Benson, some kind of 70s jazz guitar going on, which is nice. I have some Air, some Led Zeppelin.
What do you recommend that people listen to that when they're looking at your work?
Well, maybe that would help. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I like, just instrumental. Listen to a lot of classical, a lot of, some ambient. It's kind of a whole range, a whole mix, and I often like to just put shuffle on, and I would say it depends on my mood, but most of the time I find that I want a more peaceful kind of musical experience when I'm in the studio.
Yeah.
But sometimes some groovy kind of energetic dance music can be nice.
As we edit this, we'll put some music over
Okay, great.
this last part. I guess my last question will be, what's next for you?
Well, I have a show coming up at Etche in December, and it's a whole new body of work, and that is another change now in working. I think this direction is very different what I have in the gallery, and after that, then continue. I have a lot of interest in sculpture and sculptural pieces, and I find that more and more when I'm in that kind of creative space and imagining what I would like to produce next, I often go to figurative and sculptural. So that's hopefully when I'm looking at this in 5 years, that's where I've gone.
Yeah,
So,
well, we'll have to revisit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to thank you, Andrew, so much for joining us today, and I'd like to thank you all for your time and your interest in the professional practice and creative explorations happening here at North Dakota State University. So thank you, and for everyone here at the Memorial Union Gallery, keep creative.